Real pleasure to have Raju Vegesna from Zoho today. I'll let Raju introduce himself. He's got a very simple title called Chief Evangelist, but I know he does 82 jobs. So I'll let him describe his role at Zoho. And then we're going to talk about changing not just nature of work, but changing location of work. And he's been a past master at that, as you'll see. Raju, thank you for joining me. Describe yourself, describe the 82 jobs you do.
Thank you, Vinny. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, I'm the chief evangelist of the company, but end of the day, I do whatever it takes, and that's how. Yeah, it's basically a flexible role. We don't take titles too seriously in the company. So,
Raju, you're being modest. I know when you were in Pleasanton, your building there, you told me you had designed some of the features there. So you're partially an architect, you're partially a facilities manager, you're partly a product innovator. So you do a lot of different things.
and part of it comes with some beliefs and ideas, right? You tend to think that designing software is a silo in itself, and designing a building is a silo in itself, and designing campus is a silo in itself. We don't think so. The way your building is designed impacts the way your teams collaborate. I think Frank Lloyd, one of the architects, once said, "You can design a house in such a way that a newly-wed couple can will be divorced in 3 weeks." And actually, I believe in that because a design has a significant impact on how people interact. And if you're designing tools for collaboration, well, which means you have teams to collaborate, which means your physical design matters, significantly matters. You cannot disconnect the physical collaboration or physical structure from a virtual collaboration thing.
Raju, that's so great to hear because unfortunately in the technology world you and I live in, there's too much talk about digital. The analog physical part is still very, very important. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Raju, so let's talk about the move to Austin, right? I mean, clearly people have seen what you've done, and Elon Musk was inspired by you. Larry Ellison's been inspired by you. Everybody's moving to Austin. So let's go back 4 or 5 years when you started thinking about Austin. What were you thinking? Go through the thinking process. Why did you think about moving away from Silicon Valley, where you've had a location for a long time?
I mean, this was, I think, around 2009, 10 time frame. We, visited Austin and felt it has all the things that we need. We said we'll start an office here. So we started an office in Austin in 2010, and we did not expand as much. We had 20, 30 people, and that was the plan to expand. And but we kind of were growing both in Pleasanton and to some extent in Austin. About 4 years back, we said, we're going to significantly expand, and expanding in California didn't make sense for various reasons, and we got to expand here. And interestingly, 4 years back, exactly to this day, I moved myself from California to Austin, and then we said we're gonna expand, and we started investing in it. And a couple of years later, we moved our US headquarters here. But the thought process was simple. What is the most important thing here for the company, its employees, and what is the most important criteria for picking a location? It has to be quality of life. And quality of life includes multiple things. Affordability plays a role. Can our employee own a house, get settled down, build a family, have kids, and grow up there? So affordability plays an important role. How is the traffic there? They used to getting stuck in traffic for a couple of hours in the valley. Back then, it's not traffic isn't that bad in Austin. So that plays a role. Education. How is the education system? How is the community colleges out there? How is the medical facilities? How is the crime? You look at all of these aspects, and we looked at them, and we liked all of these. There are subtle clues we can get, like take Austin for example. Beautiful food trucks and whatnot. And why is it a good quality food is available at such a low prices? That tells a lot about, that tells that there are a lot of excellent cooks out there. They are living in and around Austin, and they can still make a good living and still charge lower prices. That is a good sign. Similarly, if you look at the music industry, thriving music industry, and some of these cases the pace may not be high, but they are surviving and thriving. You don't see that in the valley anymore. It used to be different, maybe late 80s, 90s. We don't see those anymore. If you look at that thriving thing, that gives an indication that hey, this is a good location, and everyone is having fun, and costs are not exorbitant. So we said this is going to be a good location, and we want to, it makes sense to set up an office here so that our employees can just settle down, buy a house, settle down, and go for the long run. And that was the thought process with Austin. In fact, we do that in all the locations we pick.
It's interesting, Raju. You didn't mention technical talent even once in the last 5 minutes, right? You talked about quality of life, you talked about affordability, and so on. Now, Austin obviously is blessed with University of Texas and a lot of being the state capital and all that. It's been a talent magnet, but surely that came into play as you looked at Austin.
To some extent, we don't look at the colleges and prestigious universities out there. I mean, there are enough companies out there, in getting that talent. But what we try to look at is, as I said, community colleges. They are the ones we look at, the quality of the community colleges. We talk to the heads of the community colleges, see what kind of talent they see, what kind of requirements they see, and then we hire from the community colleges. And for us, college degrees and all of those doesn't matter. We ditched that about 17 years back. So we actually do the training ourselves and go through the process. So we take the responsibility of grooming the talent.
That is, I remember Sridhar told me a long time ago, your CEO told me a long time ago, how he saw all the outsourcing firms in India would go and get the best talent from the Indian Institute of Technology. He's like, I can develop people a lot better. They're much more grateful, less turnover and all that. So that philosophy is unusual, but it's paid off very well for you. You mentioned you do this around the world. In Mexico, you went to the secondary city. I mean, everywhere around the world, you seem to find secondary or even tertiary cities, right? How do your country managers, how do your executives find these locations?
The country managers, basically do that analysis. All the country managers have been with the company for at least 20 years. So everyone's on the same page, same line of thinking. No matter where you look at, look at our Japan office, it's actually not in Tokyo. It is in outside of Yokohama, but we have a remote office in a small town called Kawane, which is a small town. And again, the same philosophy out there. If you look at Mexico, it is certainly not in Mexico City. It is in a place called Querétaro. But then that Querétaro is our hub. But then there are our spoke offices in smaller towns. Like we have a couple of small towns called Tequisquiapan, another small town called San Juan del Rio, and those three make up that office. That same philosophy applies globally. In Europe, we do not set it up in, say, Amsterdam. We set it up in a small town called Utrecht. So no matter where you go, I think the philosophy is consistent, because there are a lot of companies out there that set it up in like a downtown big city kind of a model, and it kind of move the talent from rural villages to the central towns. And Sridhar calls this rural revival, where there is no reason, particularly among the tech companies, there's no reason for us to be in a big city downtown, contributing to the pollution, to the traffic and whatnot, while you can do the same amount of work in same office, set up in a remote town. So we took upon this initiative several years back. We said all our offices are going to be in remote towns and cities, and we have followed that model. An important part of that is the assuming that the talent is universal, but opportunity is not. So which means, why can't we take the opportunity, in this case a job, to where the talent is, and that was the mindset. And no matter, and the employees are grateful that they don't have to uproot and relocate to another city to find a job. They can stick to the family, and all of them, the grandkids will get spend can spend time with their grandparents and whatnot. That bonding is kind of disconnected in when you uproot families. Now if you take opportunity to where the talent is, then that has a new dimension to it, and that is something we truly believe in.
You mentioned Sridhar's rural revival mindset. I interviewed him last year. He's moved to rural India, right? I mean, that's fascinating. Are you seeing more of that likely to happen? I got the sense during the pandemic that people were kind of giving up, not if not giving up, certainly getting worried about, hey, we've had too much urban development. Are you seeing that in the other peers in the technology sector?
Absolutely. We are seeing some other companies do it. Certainly, I'm close to what we are doing, and I can tell you that this is going full steam. To give you a number, in the last 6 months, we started offices in 20 locations in India alone, in 20 towns and villages, where people went back to their native place, and they became anchors. Each of those offices have about 20, 30 people in that, and they are participating in the local civic affairs, and that is locally contributing to that economy. I mean, it's a small data point, only 6 months into it, but that idea is resonating well, and we are starting to see some other companies take notice and follow that model.
And even in Austin, you've got a farm, right? I mean, was that part of your part of that thinking to maybe bring some of the rural revival even in a quite developed place like Austin?
It is, we purchased a property, to set up our office out there, and then after this, in the last year or so, it's gotten crazy, and we are rethinking Austin. In other words, I actually put a hold on hiring in Austin. Everyone's moving to the Austin. The things that were attractive are no longer attractive for us. It is attractive for other companies, maybe. So if you look at our offices here, we have two offices now outside of Austin. We started an office in New Braunfels, that is south of Austin,
Yep.
between New Braunfels and Seguin. We have one near Bastrop, east of Bastrop. We are setting up one. As of this Monday, we're starting a new. We hired 8 people. It will be a new office in South Texas. It's close to the McAllen area.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Area. We have excellent talent there. I'm excited about that as well. In all these 3 locations, affordability is the key. If you look at it, 2010, the median house price in Austin used to be about 200K. Now it's around 500K.
Wow.
But if you look at Bastrop or New Braunfels, it's still around 250K. South Texas, it's about 150K. Your dollars go further. No traffic, no pollution. So all of these factors do.
And New Brunswick is the sausage capital of the world, right? And so I went to school at TCU, so I know a little bit of Texas.
Yeah. So we are excited about that. That model is working, and that rural model taking the opportunity with talent is one part, and then you combine that with what else, like the farming, then that's a different aspect to it, and that's a whole other story where about 2 years back, actually no, about a year and a half back, because we had the farm, we bought it to build in our Austin campus. A few of our employees showed interest in farming. I actually did a casual poll to see how many of them were interested in farming. To my surprise, about 30 to 40% of them showed interest. Said, that's interesting. So we said, why don't we just go, put down some beds and start growing food for ourselves organically? And that interest kept on going, and a lot more people, now half the company in Austin, employees here, showed interest. Now we are at a stage where, as of next month, our farm is going to be our US official US headquarters, and we are ditching our building here in Austin. We're moving to the farm, and now we are producing, about 200 different varieties of food, good, healthy, organic food for all our employees, of course, for free, and all grown in our farm. And now we have a farming department with a couple of dedicated employees, and that is taking its own shape.
My God, I want the next Zoho day to be at the farm.
It is going to be, Vinny, there's no option.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. Um, Raju, but it can't be easy as an executive. All these distributed pools of talent. What it must put a lot of stress on you, right? Even though it's great for individual lifestyles and you're doing great for those communities and so on. It must be tough on you. How
All managers, we all are facing this, where all of us are trying to navigate this. Do we have it down? Absolutely not, because there is the kind of collaboration. There is an individual productivity and there is a collaborative productivity. The individual productivity certainly went up during the pandemic, but the collaborative productivity, I think, has gone down, because some form of collaborative productivity requires high bandwidth and high signal interactions. That part requires people to be together. Because imagine just going through a construction phase where it is better when you have the architect, the civil engineer, the plumbing team, the electrical team, everyone walk the floor together. Same thing, if you're designing a product, you want the designer, the product manager, the product engineer, everyone to be in the same room discussing this. That is a high bandwidth interaction. Now we can't do it. And does it have an impact negatively? Absolutely. So it has an impact, no doubt. And we are all trying to figure out, do we have a solution? No. But the way I look at it is, it is not something that we can solve in a year. It is a multi-year, in some cases, maybe a multi-decade transition that we are making. So the way I liken this transition is just like we have transitioned from a mainframe to the network of network, which is the internet, which is a centralized system to a distributed systems. We are trying to make the transition at a human level. Everyone collaborate in a central one office like a mainframe model to a distributed model where you have a network of offices collaborating together. We have to evolve, the tools have to evolve, the collaboration systems have to evolve. I think we are just in step one of that process. It still has a long way to go. And during that step one, we are all going to make a lot of mistakes. It is going to be painful. But I'm hopeful that we will, figure out each of these. None of us have, I don't believe any of us have any solutions.
well, but you're ahead of others, right? Others haven't even tried it. You've been doing it for years now, right? And I think it's showing up in something like Zoho One, right? I mean, it's all integrated and you can do a lot of collaboration. I mean, there's the integration in 50 different applications in Zoho One is part of that philosophy, right? Bringing people together.
Yes, yes. Living at that intersection is the key. It's easy to create silos. Can we build something at that intersection between the silos? We believe the next few decades are going to be focusing on that.
That's great. Let me ask you this. So what does it mean? Clearly, Tesla's moving out, Oracle's moving people. A lot of people are moving to Florida from the Northeast. From a policy perspective, shouldn't governments be evolving too, because they're losing the countries or states that are losing this? Do you see any of them, when you moved to Texas, did anybody from California or Oakland or Pleasanton say, hold on a minute, why are you doing this? Did you get any, are you seeing any movement where the losing states are starting to behave differently?
We didn't, but I think it will take some time. Once it becomes an exodus, or they call it exodus, after a while it starts to hurt. But end of the day, people will end up voting with their feet, and by the time some of them notice it might be too late for them. And then over a long period, it kind of corrects itself, or they'll make the changes, and it's always that pendulum that swings from one side to the other. But that swifts are real. Recognizing them early is the key. And just like any other business, the ones that realize early will reap the benefits of it. What states, what cities are the ones that are realizing this trend early? They are the ones that'll benefit.
So I'm going to tell me, what advice would you have for other facility managers, that hat you wear, as they're looking at 2-3 year plans? What advice would you give them?
I think at least the way we look at it is, we always have been the people first organization. Listening to people on their needs, and understanding the psychological impact is the most thing, because all of us are going through the transition now. People will figure out when to come to the office and when not to come to the office. What is a high bandwidth collaboration versus a low bandwidth interaction? And some will prefer taking that at home versus some they may come to the office at that. And there are other factors that will come into play now that everyone's experienced that you can work from anywhere and whatnot. There is going to be that new dimension. And I don't believe that the mainframe model of applied to the campuses will work anymore moving forward. But how do we connect each of these offices and still keep the collaboration up and running is a challenge that all of us have to think through. And then how do you model that physical connectivity at the office level with the virtual connectivity, with the tool level, the software level, is something the tools and have to evolve. And it is important that all of us have to think through that process. Do we have a solution? Probably not. I mean, none of us have an ideal solution. We have been probably doing it longer. But these are things where just keep all our senses open to just observe every bit out there to see how things are going.
The good news is, in the last year, a lot of VC money has gone into rethinking this 2D model, right? There's a lot more 3D telepresence thinking going on. So the technology will allow us to collaborate much better than we have in the past. Let me ask you this. I mean, clearly you did something in your California. You designed a few features. What do you take credit for in Austin?
Well, we're designing the campus, and we may not have a snack room. Likely, just if you need a snack, go into the orchard and pick up some fruits, healthy.
Oh, nice.
We will likely not have a gym. If you need a workout, we'll hand over a shovel, and there is some work.
You're gonna turn away some talent that way.
Well, I think we also anyway attract talent that is humbled down to the earth, and that we like the talent. And we did some internal survey internally before we made a decision to move our office to the farm. We asked them, how many of you think this is crazy, and how many of you don't want to pursue this? About less than, I think, 3 or 4% of them actually showed interest in retaining the status quo and going back to the structure. 95+% of our employees are a go on this. That gave me a lot of confidence pursuing this.
Well, I live in Florida, you live in Texas. I think our states have probably shown that being outside, so long as you're not careless, is healthier than being cooped up inside. So that's another reason why what you're thinking is probably going to be. Now, of course, when you hand them the shovel, people are going to push back. But no, I love the way you're thinking. What other thoughts, Raju? I mean, this is fascinating. I mean, I can't believe how difficult it must be for all you executives to manage such distributed labor. But kudos to you for.
Well, frankly, I don't think a lot of us do any management or any of that per se, because smart people and everyone will figure it out. So the system works on itself because we trust the employees. and they make the right decisions. So it's not a central system. The distributed model works across the board. So that is why we actually don't complain about not being able to sleep well at night. That is so that works out.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to visiting the farm, and we'd have to go get. Austin is a wonderful restaurant town too, so I don't want to spend too much time on the farm. We want to go explore some of the new restaurants in Austin too.
Well, there'll be some freshly cooked meals served at the farm with a local produce when you're there next time, Vinny.
Thank you so much. Look forward to it. Thank you, Raju.
Thank you.